Tonight, a Saskatoon judge stays a charge against a woman in a high-profile drug-impaired driving case. Just how much have prices gone up on common grocery store items? We break it down. And eyes to the sky for a holiday season meteor shower.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Friday, December 13th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams. Thanks for joining us. We begin with a major development in a Saskatoon court case. A judge has stayed a charge of impaired driving causing death against a woman because the trial took too long. Taylor Kennedy was behind the wheel of a truck that struck and killed 9-year-old Bailey Maurice as she crossed a street on her scooter in 2021. And as Dan Zakreski reports, today's decision has left Maurice's family in shock.
This little girl deserves justice, and that's not what we got.
Rain Mahingan is Bailey Maurice's aunt. She says the family is stunned and angered by the judge's ruling.
The court system is filled with nothing but systematic racism, not only towards the Indigenous community, but towards other communities of color. And I'm just asking every Indigenous person to not forget her, make her name matter.
Judge Jane Wooten stayed the charge because the trial went too long. The Supreme Court has set a ceiling of 18 months for provincial court trials. This one went months past that.
This was a prosecution that was flawed from the get-go. It took far longer than it should have. This wasn't a close to the ceiling case. This was a substantially over the ceiling case. We're expecting the prosecution to disagree with that. We expect they'll file a notice of appeal shortly, and we look forward to beating them at the Court of Appeal too.
It was an emotional trial from the start, in no small part because the fatal crash was caught on a doorbell camera. The footage was played in court. And there were a host of technical issues. Taylor Kennedy told police that she had microdosed psilocybin mushrooms and vaped cannabis the day before. The defense suggested that her charter and constitutional rights were violated by police at the scene. In the end, the judge never did rule on these technical issues. Instead, she stayed the charge, saying that the Crown hadn't justified why it took the trial so long to get to the end. Dan Zakreski, CBC News, Saskatoon.
The Saskatchewan Marshals Service says it's expected to be operational ahead of schedule. It's projected to launch in summer 2025 instead of mid-2026. That's because staff recruitment has reportedly been quicker than expected. The province announced the creation of the Marshals Service in October 2022. It says the Marshals will enhance law enforcement presence across Saskatchewan at an annual cost of $20 million. But the official opposition has been critical of the service. The NDP says the province has not been transparent about costs or how the force will be held accountable.
We've always expressed concern about the creation of the Marshals Service. We feel that taxpayers' dollars could probably be spent more wisely, and we could be boosting up boots on the ground more quickly by spending this money investing in frontline police services that already exist.
The service is currently headquartered in Prince Albert, and experienced officers already hired will be based there. Chief Marshal Rob Cameron says they will serve communities across the province and says the service will provide emergency support to other policing agencies, including the RCMP, and conduct what he calls proactive investigations into offences related to farming and agriculture. The Saskatoon Tribal Council says the city of Saskatoon isn't moving fast enough to help unhoused people. Chief Mark Arcand blasted city councillors a day after they approved a homelessness and encampment plan. Council also decided to pay for $360,000 in extra renovations at the province's temporary shelter in downtown Saskatoon. Despite that, Arcand says he's frustrated. A city-led count of unhoused people in Saskatoon revealed the number tripled in 2 years to 1,500. He says a temporary shelter is not good enough given the demand.
So City Council's got to say, what are we doing now today? What are we doing now today to serve 1,500 people that are on the streets of Saskatoon? And the answer is zero. They're not moving any. They haven't increased any beds. They haven't done anything like that. They're worried about the 35 beds to be ready in March, which is not going to solve anything through the winter.
Arcand says he plans to speak at next week's City Council meeting. He says this week's frigid temperatures underscore the need for immediate action. A new facility has opened in Regina that will offer young people access to mental and physical health, as well as educational services. The center, known as Home Base, is now open in the YWCA Center for Women and Families on 12th Avenue. It's the third of 4 youth-centered hubs being launched across the province by the John Howard Society and the provincial government. The facility in Regina will cater to young people from ages 12 to 25.
I think anytime you can provide a safe space for youth to be able to come together and know that there are services and people there that they can talk to is just the best for everybody involved. So these home-based services, that's exactly what they're going to be doing for the youth right across the province.
The hubs are based on an integrated youth services model. That means that multiple services will be offered at the same facility. It's also been developed by youth for youth, so it's services that can stay relevant. The federal government is intervening in the Canada Post strike. Labour Minister Stephen McKinnon is sending the dispute to the Canada Industrial Relations Board.
Not only have the parties been able to show any progress towards an agreement, the federal mediator has now informed me that the negotiations between both parties are now, in fact, going in the wrong direction.
If the board determines negotiations are at an impasse, it's directed to issue a back-to-work order. At the same time, an inquiry will examine why talks have failed. Its scope will include the corporation's structure and business model. The union has denounced today's move as an assault on collective bargaining and the right to strike. The federal government's tax holiday begins Saturday. You'll be paying less for many common purchases, including prepared foods, restaurant meals, children's clothing and toys, and more. The GST break will last for 2 months until February 15th, right after another busy commercial holiday, Valentine's Day. In the 5 provinces with HST, the entire harmonized tax will be removed. It could be a big boon for retailers, but many small businesses are concerned it could lead to chaos and confusion as they try to make sense of what's exempt and what isn't. And the GST break will provide shoppers with a little relief at the checkout, but overall, food prices have been rising. In some cases, the price of some basic staples in many homes have nearly doubled. Chris Edwards has the details.
Well, I buy a lot less of it than I used to.
It's a statement we're hearing more and more from grocery shoppers in Saskatchewan. Many say they're cutting back on food purchases as prices continue to climb. And some popular grocery items in particular have seen huge price increases since 2018. According to Statistics Canada, the price of olive oil has grown by 119% since 2018. And over that same period, onions became 88% more expensive, pork shoulder prices rose by 81%, and broccoli rose by 72%.
Many Canadians would like there to be a simple answer that here's the reason food prices have gone up. You know, whether it's the grocers, whether it's the carbon tax, and the simple answer, it's none of the above alone. It's many things.
Many things, including the war in the Ukraine, which has resulted in higher prices for food inputs like fertilizer and wheat, to a weakening Canadian dollar, which has pushed up the price of imports, to changing climate conditions in key food exporting countries in Europe.
Olive oil went through the roof because of very bad growing conditions in the Mediterranean basin, in Spain, in Italy, and so we saw those prices go up. That was made worse by the fact that sunflower oil wasn't coming out of the Ukraine.
As these issues continue to be at play with one another, everyday shoppers are feeling the heat. Many of them are worried, frustrated, and feeling forced to cut back.
So now that I have a newborn, it's like on top of the grocery list, we have like a newborn essential, so it's crazy.
I have a nephew who's got 6 kids. It's just ridiculous, the amount it's gone up for them in the past couple of years.
Last week, Canada's food price report predicted that overall, food prices in Saskatchewan went up by 2.8% and will likely continue to rise next year. Chris Edwards, CBC News, Regina.
Canada's swimming sensation has done it again.
McIntosh chasing it, chasing more gold, chasing more history. Here she comes, and she's done it, 1:59.32. It's a world record. That's a gold medal, McIntosh.
Summer McIntosh has broken another world record at the Short Course World Championships in Budapest. As you just saw, she set a new record in the women's 200-meter butterfly with a time of 1 minute and 59.32 seconds. Earlier this week, she set a world record in the women's 400-meter freestyle. Well, what a difference 24 hours makes. A much warmer day for many of us, albeit with some wind to give a bit of an extra chill in the air. But the warm-up continues into the weekend. However, we will trade our Arctic air for some messy moisture. I'll have all the details in your full forecast when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Premier Scott Moe says if the federal government puts export taxes on commodities sent to the U.S., it would be a, quote, complete betrayal. CBC News has learned the feds are considering this on commodities like uranium, oil, and potash as a retaliation against Trump's tariff threats.
A broad-based tariff war on imports, let alone on exports, which to my knowledge has never occurred. Broad-based tariff war across North America benefits neither the Americans or the Canadians, but it does benefit some of our maybe non-allied nations in other areas of the world. And so we need to work together alongside the federal government and other premiers to ensure that we can avoid any of this talk. And if it does come, that it's going to be as short-lived as possible.
And the tariff threat was also on the minds of the Morning Edition's political panel. They chatted with host Stephanie Langenegger about that and how the fall sitting of the legislature went.
House behavior, I'll give them that. They were less annoying, less obnoxious in terms of this. At the end, they were starting getting into more silly points of order and everything else, so they could only stop themselves so much, but less heckling, less other things. Policy-wise, I also think that they were probably doing better, but in some ways, if you look at how the last session of the last legislature ended or how the election campaign went, when the number one priority all of a sudden became kids' change rooms, it's not hard to do better. The better part was basically focusing on the things that, as Adam outlined, affordability, health, education. But and it's a big but in this particular case, there's too much baggage. And we're dealing with stories of things said and done in the past. We had a whole auditor's report talking about issues that haven't been properly dealt with, like foreign farmland ownership or the whole Gary Graywall situation, the conflict of interest. The not better part is basically saying, well, we're going to do everything, or basically doing everything possible to prevent Mr. Graywall from being accountable for what he did as an MLA and not dealing with the issue of whether he should be punished or not, and basically not even allowing the opposition a motion to discuss this or bring it forward. That's not better. That's doing the things in the same way you used to. So if you're really doing better, do better. Like, do actually make changes in terms of things of substance that they are working on, and that has to somewhat extend beyond a few policy changes and election promises that you made to have the privilege of running government again. It's got to be a whole holistic thing here, and I don't think I'm seeing better yet. Hopefully we will next session. Be quite frank, I'm not 100% sure we will.
Adam, you had a chance to talk to the Premier yesterday, and I found him to be sounding more statesman-like, less combative when it comes to conversations with the Prime Minister and other premiers on what the incoming President Donald Trump may or may not do with tariffs. What did you hear from Scott Moe yesterday?
That tone may not have lasted very long because in the afternoon, he did put out a post on social media saying that it was a betrayal if Trudeau and the Liberal government go through with export taxes on things like potash, oil, and uranium, and that should ring some bells for people in Saskatchewan. Those are three of our major exports and things that drive the economy here. And so that was also posted by Brad Wall and others. Danielle Smith saying a similar thing. And what's been happening over the last couple of days since this meeting with Trudeau and even leading into the meeting was we need a united front. And that's what Scott Moe told me yesterday. And I think he does believe that, but we have premiers all coming and saying a different thing. So they're all saying different things. Wap Kinew saying, well, we're going to have a list of retaliatory measures. Doug Ford's being very specific about withholding energy exports to the U.S. or different things. Scott Moe in our conversation said, well, let's not go too crazy. Let's wait and see what happens. I think it's sort of a foregone conclusion that these tariffs are coming the way Donald Trump is talking, the way his incoming government is talking. And so this Team Canada approach isn't working. I will say that Scott Moe didn't, in our conversations, say as much as we heard in the past being critical of the Prime Minister or calling for an election, but he still did call for an election. He still is saying, we need a new leader. We need someone who's got a mandate. This government's been along for more than 4 years. It's time. Call an election. Let's have whoever's elected. So we do have to give a hint of who he thinks might be elected.
Right.
Give a more of a united front and come out and be our negotiator with Trump going forward.
This weather update is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz Regina, proud member of the Capital Automotive Group.
Well, maybe you put away a few of those extra layers that you had out the past couple of days as our temperatures bumped up in the province on this Friday as we look at a dark sky over Regina, and the lights have come on, of course, the longest night of the year. Soon to come. We are looking at the solstice, of course, which is, just, I guess, over a week away, December 20th, December 24th. December 21st, rather. Shouldn't get too ahead of myself. That's Christmas Eve, December 24th. We're looking at some record cold temperatures that we saw just yesterday on Thursday. We saw some very, very cold temperatures around east central Saskatchewan, Nipawin, Wynyard, down around the minus 40 mark. That actually tied a record in Nipawin. Last Mountain Lake, Broadview, and Watrous. Some older records there, 1975 being broken in Last Mountain Lake in the Broadview area, and a chilly minus 35 in Watrous. Those temperatures, though, much improving for Friday. These were daytime highs across the province. Still kind of a pocket of some cooler air in west central Saskatchewan. But of course, you really compare this to what we saw on Thursday, and boy, what a warm-up. Look at that south end. That's nearly 20 degrees warmer when you compare noon Thursday with noon Friday. And a few other notable locations are in red and orange on that map there. But almost everyone's seeing some sort of temperature increase. Again, less so in western sections of the province, but still a warm-up nonetheless. Cloud cover overnight tonight should begin to part just a little bit. But I think as we head through the day tomorrow, we're looking at a partly to mostly sunny day for south and central. Still some cloud cover in the north. That low pressure system is our next weather maker, and that is bringing through some heavier snow through far northern Saskatchewan. And then as that low begins to move through early Sunday morning, that'll bring some freezing rain likely to places like Weyburn and up around Moosomin and through southeastern Saskatchewan before it changes over to snow as temperatures drop again, yes, Sunday night into Monday before that system quickly moves out. For northern Saskatchewan, a good 5 to 10 centimeters, maybe a little bit higher than that in some far northwestern locations is possible. For southeastern Saskatchewan, we're probably looking at, I would say, about 5 centimeters, maybe locally some pockets heavier than that. This model tends to kind of overestimate the snowfall amounts. In terms of rainfall, again, I think this is tapping a bit into the snowfall that's going to be falling, but a few millimeters could make for some icy roads in southeastern sections come later Sunday and into Monday, especially as those temperatures drop. Winds are going to pick up a little bit on Saturday, Sunday as well. Shouldn't be anything overly breezy, though. I think for this system, it's mostly the moisture that we're going to be watching. Regina, we have a chance of catching that system, and it will be either rain or snow. Then we get those temperatures dropping a bit, and then we kind of ride that teeter-totter temperature-wise as we head into next week. For Saskatoon, I think you avoid that system pretty much altogether. But again, you'll see a pretty significant temperature drop, especially into Tuesday before things kind of warm up for Wednesday, and then we're back a little bit below seasonal for Thursday and Friday. Well, this zoo in Belgium decided to surprise its residents with some early holiday treats. Trunks, snouts, hooves, and paws made short work of these tasty gifts. Zoo visitors also get to feast their eyes on a massive Christmas-themed light show with more than 1 million lights. Incredible. Stay with us. We will be back after the break. Well, if you've ever had to park near the Regina General Hospital, you know it can be an issue. But now a new parkade is built and will serve staff, visitors, and patients. The 4-level parkade will bring 1,000 additional parking spaces. Parking has been a long-standing struggle for people who use the hospital as they look for safe and accessible parking spots. 70% of staff are currently waiting for a parking spot.
Sometimes there were safety concerns if they had to walk long distances to be able to get back to their car during nighttime shift change, and so ultimately this is an opportunity to allow them to park on site.
The parkade includes motion sensor lighting as well as a system on each level to alert hospital security in the event of an emergency. Eligible staff have been told they can use the parkade starting Monday. Well, temperatures tonight not going into the deep freeze through south and central Saskatchewan, as we see between about -10 to -15, I think is where we'll land in terms of temperatures. For northern Saskatchewan, kind of around that -15 to -20 mark. That is actually slightly above seasonal now that we've seen things warm up. But you see a little bit of cloud cover there, and that is going to remain a theme, I think, through the day Saturday for much of the north as those temperatures improve somewhat. Again, we'll get in that -10, -15 range, and again, a little bit of that snow possible as we head into western sections by the later afternoon hours Saturday. For south and central, waking up with a bit more clearing skies, and I think we will actually see some breaks of sun as we head through Saturday. Temperature-wise, again, getting up into about freezing to -5 for highs, and look at that, maybe even above freezing in southwestern Saskatchewan as we see that moisture start to move in, and again, we are looking for that messy mix to move into the southeast on Sunday. And finally, tonight for astronomers, professional and amateur alike, one of the biggest events of the holidays is the annual Geminids meteor shower. And this year's event reaches its peak over the next couple nights. The Geminids are one of the most spectacular meteor showers. This year, though, an almost full moon will dim their luster. Some years, the moon is part of the show, with flashes visible from meteors striking its surface. It's believed the Geminid meteors originate from an asteroid that was only discovered in 1983. Maybe a bit of cloud cover obscuring our view as well. That is it for us this week. For news anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/sask, subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel, or you can also download the CBC News app. Thank you so much for watching. We're back Monday at 6. Have a great weekend.